Hey everyone, it's Fox from modelmaking.guru here with part 2 of our build of the DeAgostini Millennium Falcon studio scale replica. Right, issues 2 and 3 I think, yes, have arrived with their resplendent set of parts. We have the first turret, which is massive. We've got the door for the cockpit and the sticker that goes on the back. Second piece of hull plating, 2 control yokes, 2 little handles for the console dashboard and sticker, passenger seats, pilot seats, the DeAgostini table, I think it's DeAgostini, am I pronouncing that right? I think it is. DeAgostini table, which is metal, and the sticker. We have 2 more pieces of armature framework for the hull plating and bags of screws and little plates to attach all the armature together, and a free screwdriver in this week's episode, or in this week's issue, with a handy little twizzly end so you can twizzle it round. I quite like that. I also got a free t-shirt, which bizarrely I didn't choose the size and they decided I was medium, which is probably about right, except this medium is for very small people, like really tiny people. Have I got it here? I'll show you. It is. I don't know if you'll see all this. Front is quite nice, got big wireframe of Millennium Falcon on it. On the back, that's cool. On the back it's not so cool. It's got the Build the Millennium Falcon logo and the fastest hunk of junk in the galaxy. Yeah, I probably won't wear it because of that, or I'll wear it under something. I mean, I'm a geek, I'll quite happily wear a Millennium Falcon t-shirt. But yes, so I probably won't wear that. It's quite nice though, it's quite a nice little t-shirt. I'll probably use it for scruffy stuff at work. So, I've been thinking about how we're going to do this. I've been planning this. I think what I'm going to do is prime, pre-shade and base coat paint the panels as I go along, as I get them. Basically because I don't know what's coming up in each episode apart from when I get, in each issue apart from when I get the issue. I must stop saying episode. And I don't know, once these things are attached, some people have said the screws appear to be self-tapping. I have no idea what that means. I don't do screws and hardware stuff, but I assume it means they thread themselves and then they're locked in. So they might not be removable. So if they're not, I don't want to put all the hull plates on. The problem is that my desk isn't going to be big enough to paint the whole thing when it's built. So I think what I'll have to do is prime these, pre-shade them and base coat paint them as I go along, stick them on the hull, and then when that's all built, I can exit stage right to the sunny garden, hopefully it'll be in the summertime when the whole thing's built, and start with the weathering in about 2 years' time when we're all old men. So that's what I might do. So what I'm going to do in this episode, I won't show you the process because it's a hassle moving my camera around, and also at the moment in my spray booth is my 1/72 scale Millennium Falcon, so I can't really film in there. So what I'm going to do is I'll probably go through and I'll just present you the item painted. So we'll do that. We'll get the framework built, and I'm going to have to do some research into the DeAgostini table to find out what colour it actually is. If it's kind of a metal colour, I might leave it and stick the sticker on. If it's not metal, I'll obviously have to research that and find out. We'll paint the seats as well. I might get them all done in this episode. I might stretch it to a third one. I don't want these episodes to be like 45 minutes long. But first things we have to do is discuss this turret. There are some issues with this turret, so let me just clear all this away and we shall discuss the issues with the turret. So back in a second. Right, so onto this turret. This is the turret that's received in the issue 2 or 3 I think, I can't remember now. I kind of ripped them all out and put the magazines to one side, so yeah. As we go through this, I want you to bear in mind the words of the former founder of Master Replicas, Steve. I've forgotten his name. That bloke that I'll put it on the thing here. Anyway, he said that he spent 2 years getting all the weathering and painting right, and that it's going to be the most accurate Falcon. They found bits on the model that were missing from the studio model that they missed when they did the Master Replicas one. I want to take a bit of issue with that. Not major, but it's like, maybe not. First of all, what the hell is this? This orange panel here? Let me show you. Oh, and for scale as well, by the way, this is my 1/72 scale turret. That's how big this thing is. It's huge. Now, mine isn't by any means brilliantly painted, and I've just based mine on the studio model, but from what I could see in the pictures, that panel is a slightly discoloured. Mine's not actually strong enough, but it's a slightly discoloured rusty orange tone. A little bit, a hint. Not this bright orange thing with a white bit in the middle. No. Just no. Also, complete lack of paint chips on them. On the fine molds, this is from the fine molds kit, the paint chips actually come with the decals. The decals are already chipped. So, but there's nothing, not a sausage. So, just wobble my camera, I do apologise. So, yeah, I mean, basically what they do is, instead of the master replicas ones, which were hand painted, and it was kind of, you know, you paid your thousands of dollars, and it was pot luck as to how well the painting team in China painted it. This is pressed painted. It's like I don't know how it works. It's like a rubber stamp basically. It goes thump on, flops down on it and prints all the paint. I assume that also applies to this. I'm going to use the word weathering in the loosest possible sense. Scorching marks here, which means you get these nice flat colours. But unfortunately, I don't know what this is. And I'll be honest with you, the pictures you're seeing of the completed Falcon on the magazines and in publicity material, one of them has what looks like this, but it's a lot more weathered, and one of them doesn't have this at all. They're not showing us the finished Falcon. They're not showing us what this thing will look like in their photographs. They're showing us the model that that bloke from Master Replicas, they're showing us the model he made and painted as a reference. I think. I could be wrong. I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't know. But they've not yet shown us what this thing looks like with its pre-painted scheme. So, I mean, it doesn't bother me too much because I'm going to repaint it anyway. But it's kind of annoying. It's not brilliant. Now, the big problem with this, when I received it, and you'll get it as well if you're doing this kit, it looks like this. The window is here. However, you can't really see on there. But if you look at that window compared to that window, I don't have this frame bar here. That doesn't exist. It's not there. This is in the wrong position. Now, this isn't a one-off. There's actually, there's actually a little tab in here that goes into a hole. So there's only one way this can fit when you get it. Which means, even though this is supposed to be the most accurate Falcon ever made, it's wrong. So, what do you do about that? Well, you can remove it if you choose. It's a little bit risky, but it's not too hard. Basically, this is glued in place. Underneath, you'll see there'll be a little tab. There's a little, you can't really see it, but there's a little notch here, and on this thing is a little tab. That goes in. Now, you'll either get, I've seen some with little dods of glue, where you just get a knife and break the dod and then push it out. Mine had all the glue. It was glued all the way around. So what I had to do was, let me see if I can find, where's my knife? I'll show you. Basically got a modelling knife. I used an old scruffy one, I didn't want to use a sharp one. And all I did was, I quite simply got my blade and worked it round the inside. With quite a bit of pressure, but I worked it round, just scoring it where the frame meets the side of the hull. The bit where the notch was actually a bit looser, so at first I had a little bit of play just there. And I very gently worked my way around, just pushing it ever so slightly. It really didn't want to give. But after a lot of cajoling and just going round with the knife like that, very carefully because I didn't want to cut my fingers off or damage this, eventually it did start to pop out. And when it came out, it was a case of stressful push, push, snap. Oh, it's come out. And there was one little bit left there and I had to really gently cajole it out. I didn't want to damage it because if it snapped I would have been knackered because I didn't have a spare part. So you basically have to work your knife around the inside and just push. I tried to push from like these bits where that frame spar joins the circle. So I pushed that way. I didn't push from the middle because that would have risked snapping the sides. So what I will do is I will now go ahead and replace that. correctly, so that these two spars line up with that, and those two are there in the middle, and I'll just glue that back in place. And I'm guessing I'll have to do the same on the bottom side as well, although I don't know how you're going to be mounting this, so I don't know if they'll even have a bottom side turret. They might do. Right, so that's that out of the way. So yeah, paint job, it's fine if you're not that fussy. And these little blaster marks, the painting is terrible. I mean, it's just a black wash almost. And I'm not 100% convinced these little pits, they've nicely moulded them in, the little dings, little depressions. I'm not sure they're in the right place. I'm not sure that there's that many little dings. But I'll be painting over this, so I'll re-weather that anyway. Get rid of this yellow monstrosity. So, let's crack on. What we shall do, what I'm going to do today, or try and do today, is, with my pile of stuff, see how I professionally pour that out. Got the stuff from last time as well. What we'll do is we'll get the frame put together. I'm going to repaint these little bits on the door. The screwdriver makes a good pointy stick as well. Going to repaint these little bits on the door to be a more tan colour because I've decided that's the right colour. And we're going to paint these chairs. These are completely the wrong colour. If you look at the shots, hard to find, but if you look at the shots of the studio set, they're more of a tanny yellowy colour. And the seats I think are a bit too red. They're more of a, I don't know, khaki colour. But I'm gonna kind of wing it. So let's get this little bit of framework bolted together first. Right, so what do we have? And we should have done this in the last issue, really. But you know me, I like to leave things waiting around. So we have this. I'll just go and get all these bits ready, and then I'll start screwing them together. So back in a second. Okay, just had a thought before we do the framework. What I'm going to do is go off and prime the bits I'm going to paint, which is basically the cockpit parts, so the seats, floor, fascia, dashboard, and the door. Don't need to do the underside of the cockpit or the sides of the door because you're never going to see them. And also the main hull plate parts, the three we've got. They're just stuck on with some half cocktail sticks and blue tack onto a piece of foam. So I'll go and prime those. So back in a moment, we'll crack on with that framework. Okay, right, we're making the framework now. It's quite simple. You have your framework pieces, and Deag give you some connectors, some 2-piece and 4-piece connectors, and some tiny little screws. If I remember rightly, they do have a colour code for the screws, and the black ones are the ones that link the framework together. I can't remember quite the code, but there's going to be different coloured screws throughout the course of the build. Handy tip, put your little screws and things in something, like a little, I think this is a Nutella jar lid. Put them in something, just so they don't disappear. And I think typically as well, you tend to get like an extra screw, which is really nice of them. I think that's quite cool. But what we're going to do, we're going to assemble this framework. I've done the first 2 bits. Trick is to put the pieces on loosely, so these aren't tight. They're just loosely screwed. Apart from that one, which is actually quite tight. Idiot. They're quite tricky to get on. This one took me a couple of goes because it's quite tiny and you've got to get it in. But thankfully, the screwdriver is magnetic. So, well done, DeAgostini. Right, so I'm going to carry on and go through these. Just so you know, the instructions tell you which part to screw to which part, but each part is numbered. This is TF01. They're all TFs, and they're all numbered. So you know at all times which part you stick into which other part. Right, so I'm going to speed this up while I do this. So let's crack on. I'm following the instructions from the magazine because it's quite detailed. So I'll crack on, I'll speed it up so you don't have to watch it. So, activate the high speed, super speed button. Bye! And there we have it. Done. First bit of framework manufacture. Relatively easy. It's a little bit loose. Relatively easy, but very fiddly. The magnetic screwdriver is magnetic, but not that magnetic. And the screws are tiny. So, a couple of times when you ideally need about 4 pair of hands, but never mind. So yeah, that's on. As you can also see in this bit, my hands are a little bit shaky because I've only had about 4 cups of coffee. So, just making sure these are all tight. Dee-dee-dee. Now I need to test fit the plates on here, so I'll do that. They've just been primed, so I'll do that when we've finished everything else. So that is the building part there. I shall go and check on my hull plates that I've now primed. So, back in a moment. Okay, right. The primer's now dried on the parts I primed. We have the main hull panels. Got rid of all that naff black wash. The turret's looking much better. Now it's not got this horrendous orange nonsense. And you can see the blaster damage a bit better. It doesn't look too bad, actually. I can probably work with that. There may be some Dremel work involved just to make it a bit more accurate. I think it's not 100%, but I'll have to double check. I'm not sure. And also all the cockpit parts are now primed. Seats, floor, dashboard and door. I've not done the back wall because I've already stuck the sticker on that. So we'll just have to work with that and make it all blend. Primer I used. I'm posting up this obviously on the modelmaking.guru website and Facebook and Twitter, the video series. I'm also doing a sort of build buddy build with Clayton DJ on International Scale Modeler forum in the works in progress section. We're both building the same kit and we're riffing off each other. There is some discussion on there as to what primer to use, and I've had discussions elsewhere. I'm using Tamiya Surface Primer, rattle can, bog standard. I'm using the grey one, not the white one, just because it's easy to see the grey one when you're spraying like light coloured hull panels. There is some discussion on there as to what kind of primer to use. There's 3 real options, and it's really down to personal taste. There's airbrush, things like Badger and Vallejo, they do airbrush primers. There's using a spray gun, not an airbrush, like a primer gun or a spray gun, an automotive one, looks like a gun. Again, you could use your primers from Vallejo or Badger or any others. And then you also have the rattle cans. Now I prefer rattle cans purely because they give you massive coverage very quickly, and everything that comes out is wet paint. With airbrushes, you get a small paint area sprayed, but then you also get a lot of overspray, a large amount of overspray. And by overspray, I don't mean paint going off an edge, but I mean paint that hits the surface of the model that's already dry before it hits the model. Airbrushes tend to give quite a lot of overspray, so you tend to get a small area of paint and then a large area of overspray. It doesn't really make too much of a difference, but it can affect the texture you get because you're basically then spraying the next coat over an area of wet paint and dry paint, and depending on the paint you're using, it can dry differently. So spray guns tend to give you a big area of spray paint and not much overspray, and rattle cans, everything is wet that comes out, so you can paint a large amount quickly. I didn't really want to sit here and spray these, you know, if I was painting this entire Falcon, it'd take me days to primer it. And with primer, it's not really complicated, just spray it on, thin coat, done. I'm not looking to get colour blending and stuff like that, so I didn't want to spend a lot of time with primer. So rattle cans work for me. Just blast it on and done. What I'll do is I'll take you over to the spray booth. Now, it's not brilliant filming in my spray booth. The lighting's a bit crap, so I won't show you the spray painting, but I'll show you the pre-shading that I'm going to use just on these panels to give some shadowing. You can see the original colour there compared to the primer. Right, so over to the spray booth, and apologies for the pants lighting. Right, so here we are in the spray booth. Got our first panel. What do I mean by pre-shading? What I'm going to do is use a dark tone to highlight all the little grooves and lines, just so that when I put the main base coat on, it'll give some dark shadowing to where those grooves and lines are. Apologies for the wobbly camera, by the way this is set up, it's going to wobble. Now, a lot of people use black. I don't like using black, it's too unsubtle, it's too dark to me, personally, when I'm spraying a light coat. So what I'm going to use is Tamiya XF85 Rubber Black. It's a dark greyish colour, and you can build it up for darker bits, so I quite like Rubber Black. I'm about to run out, so I might not be able to get all the spraying done today. So, and what am I spraying it with? My trusty DeVilbiss Dagger airbrush. Turn everything on. Make sure it all works. I only want a very slight flow, because I'm going to get quite close. So I don't want a large amount of flow. It's very simple. You can be as careless as you like. You're just putting in some shadowing around panel edges and panel lines. You can build it up, and it doesn't have to be perfect because it's not going to be anything major. It's just a subtle shadow. You won't really see this when it's finished. It'll just suggest to your brain that there's a shadow there. I've got the flow on very low and I'm getting quite close. I hope you can see all this. Might put the paint up a little bit just because it's going a bit slow. I also haven't got a lot of paint left, so I don't want to use too much too quick. You'll see this technique used a lot on fighter planes and warplanes and things. Just to suggest areas where there might be shadowing. Because this is such a big kit, you can do a lot of this that you wouldn't normally do on the smaller version. You've got a lot more freedom to go crazy with it. And that is pre-shaded. So next up will be a coat of my custom paint. I won't show that because it's incredibly hard to paint in the spray booth and film at the same time. So I'll go off and do as much of the rest of the pre-shading as I can. When we come back, I'll explain about the base coat. So, back in a moment. Okie dokie, right. All the painting of the panels has now been done. I decided to airbrush the cockpit parts. I'll show you these quickly and then we'll probably wrap this episode up because I don't want to go on too long, and we'll do the cockpit in the next one when I've got the rest of the cockpit parts. Following the pre-shading, the panels have now all been painted. I don't know if it comes out on camera, but you can see it's been painted the base colour and you can just see subtle shadows where the panel lines, where the pre-shaded patches and lines were. Don't know if you can see on the edge there. Just gives it some depth and some variation. Like I said earlier on, it is a very subtle effect. You probably won't see most of it. You can see a bit of it maybe there, maybe. Don't know if the light's good enough. The idea is not to make bold, obvious parts. There's a bit there you can see around the edges. It's not to make it obvious, it's supposed to be almost imperceptible. There's some in that little grill there, you can see maybe it's a little bit darker. I don't know if this will come out on camera. it's not supposed to be obvious. It's just supposed to let your eye see a bit of a shadow and register it. No, I did tell you my back. The teeth, words, get them out. Right, let's start that again. I did tell you I'd explain my custom paint to you. Basically, what I'm using for the base coat that the panels are coloured in is a custom mix. It's all Tamiya. Now I could have this wrong. I've written it down somewhere and I can't remember. I think, and I'm going to have to figure this out by the time I paint the rest of the panels. I think it's 4 parts Tamiya flat white to 1 part Tamiya deck tan. By parts, what I tend to do is make it a whole pot. So I will mix up 4 pots of flat white and 1 pot of deck tan. Basically, these 2 little bottles were what I mixed for my 1/72 scale Falcon. So it's 4 pots and 1 pot. And the 1/72 scale Falcon used a whole pot. I think that's about 25 or 50 mil. I'm not sure. I think it's 50 mil. That was enough to paint the 1/72 scale Falcon, and I made 2. So you can imagine how many of these I'd need to paint this thing. So that's my custom blend. Basically, just I mix them all together. I'll tell you a nice, quick, simple way to do it. Cupcake pots. I got these from, I think, Hobbycraft. Paper, but they've got a plastic lining. Just mix your paint in those. There you go, done. Don't need to spend a lot of money. So 4 pots of white, flat white. 1 pot of deck tan, has to be deck tan. And that made, to me, just about the right colour. The hull isn't supposed to be white. It's supposed to be an ever so slightly warm, just off white. Some people mix in greys, but I tried that once and I found it too blue. I tried I made a Falcon once and sprayed it with Tamiya AS16 aerosol spray, which was similar, but when you actually look at it, it was too blue. So I find this is my personal preference, white and deck tan. You can mix whatever colours you like. I did it in such a way that I had to think ahead and think of what weathering I'm going to add that's going to discolour it even more. Traditionally, the rumour is that the actual Falcon is painted a mixture of 50-50 Floquil Grime and Floquil Reefer White. I thought about using those, but I chose not to for a couple of reasons. One, it's really hard to get Floquil paints in the UK. And 2, I've never used Floquil paints. They're not acrylics, and I wasn't sure about putting them through my airbrush because I don't like putting stuff I don't know through my airbrush if I can't get it out. Which is why that airbrush, the DeVille Bis Dagger, I use for paint and acrylics, and that's it. If I have to do any kind of varnish coats or anything like that, I'll use my crappy old Spraycraft. I can sacrifice that. So that's my mix, my custom mix. That'll probably do me for a few more of the body panels, probably another 5 or 10 maybe, and then I'll have to mix some more, and I have to hope it's 4-1, not 3-1. Probably 4-1, I think, but experiment. 3-1 is still a bit brown, I think, so you'll see it. I say I also painted the cockpit. I just flat straight painted these German grey, Tamiya German grey. I will weather these to darken it a bit. It's not quite the right colour for the stickers. If you put the dashboard sticker on there, you see it's not quite the same colour because there's black. But I'll be doing some either washes or oil paints to darken it and give highlights and lowlights. So it should either blend or make a nice difference between the two. Because some of the panels are black, some of them are grey. So we'll see what comes out. I haven't done the seats. I'm going to leave it there for this time, just because it's a long episode. When we come back, I will hopefully have had the other cockpit parts. I think that's over the next 2 episodes. So we'll look at whatever comes through. We'll look at painting the cockpit properly, getting the weathering done, and getting the seats painted. So I'll plan that one ahead. Don't know how I'll do that one, because watching me paint things is really boring. All you see is this and my head with my visor. So don't know how we'll do that. It might be a case of, here's the thing I've painted, here's what I did. But that'll do for this time. Thanks very much again for watching. As always, go along to modelmaking.guru. That's www.modelmaking.guru for other stuff I've done. Also on Facebook and Twitter. And I'm also painting this, like I said, on International Scale Modeler, which I should know the URL because it's probably really obvious, but I'll post it up in the magic subtitle here. I meant to join there a long time ago. I never got around to it, so I did about a month ago. I know Paul's work from eModels. So go along to there and hang out with them. It's a cool place. But that'll do for this time. When we come back, we'll do the furniture and cockpit and stuff, and then whatever else turns up in the next box. So thanks again for watching, and stay tuned for the next one. And as always, adios amoebas.